Chapter 1, Made. The restoration of Subaru Natsuki's lost life came with the usual, nigh unbearable agony. The power of return by death caused no lag between death and resurrection. Subaru's mind didn't perceive a pause or transition from his final moments, as only time itself and his body reverted to their previous states. This inconsistency between his mind and reality disturbed his soul deeply. The instant return to a cold, hard floor made it was clear this time was no exception to the usual rules. The first thing that broke into Subaru's consciousness was a revolting sensation. Wei! Gaho! Og! Before his mind could catch up to reality, he violently retched from the foreign matter he found in his mouth. A bitter taste and the stench of soil lingered on Subaru's tongue. He coughed as he desperately forced open his eyes. This is, a hoarse breath escaped Subaru as he sat up, squinting at the gloom. After blinking a few times, his eyes grew accustomed to the darkness, and he could make out the interior of an old stone room, one familiar to him. He realized he was in the ruin. Inside, the tomb. The peculiar putrid air stood out in his memory. There was no mistaking that this was the tomb and the sanctuary. Placing his hands on the rough floor, Subaru pushed himself to his feet while connecting the tangled threads of his memory to piece together what had happened. Fresh back from return by death, his brain couldn't cope with the amount of information flooding into it. He was sure he'd gathered the Earlham village residents that had evacuated to the sanctuary and brought them back to their homes on his way to Roswell Manor. He'd planned to confront Frederica once he arrived, only to find the mansion abandoned, causing worry to stab at his chest. He was concerned about the others who were supposed to be there, Beatrice, Petra, and above all, Rem. I told you, didn't I? I promised you, yes? With a shudder, Subaru's throat went taut as the lush voice brushed directly against his nerves. It was a bloody voice, the very essence of vulgarity and pleasure. The speaker had reached her climax when she witnessed the loss of life, heaving a satisfied sigh as she spoke of her one-sided promise. Subaru touched his stomach where it had been slashed and his innards had spilled out. Naturally, after return by death, his body was unharmed. However, the deepest scars had been carved not in his flesh but his soul. No, getting my gut sliced open was the biggest reason I was brought to the mansion, wasn't it? Pulling his finger away from his right flank, Subaru gently traced the center of his abdomen. The wound was nowhere to be found, but in Subaru's true history, it was a cold, hard fact that he had been sliced wide open. And for Subaru, the culprit was the first obstacle he had faced after arriving in his new world, so the bowel hunter returns to the stage. Gimme a break, geez. He used the back of his hand to wipe the sweat beading on his brow. In the back of Subaru's mind, he could see a beautiful woman of pure darkness with long hair every bit as black as his own. Brandishing a vicious blade, that butcher had taken Subaru's life twice over, and her name was Elsa Gramhild. Why was that woman at the mansion? Forget it. Not that isn't important, but, having reviewed what had happened since his return by death, Subaru's mind focused back on the present. Where had his ability brought him? As far as he could tell, since he was in the ruins, there could only be two possibilities, and given the cramped, stone room, he narrowed those down to one. This must be right after I took the tomb's trial, or right before. Which one it is, doesn't matter. More importantly, if this is after the trial, then, when Subaru's mind and reality connected with the speed of a blitzkrieg, his head practically snapped back to look over his shoulder. Inside that claustrophobic chamber, the figure he sought was lying on the floor right behind him. Amelia! There lay Amelia, her silver hair fanned out around her head and her pale cheeks twisted in anguish. Subaru knelt at her side and was about to touch her sleeping face when he hesitated. If he touched her, Amelia's trial would end right then and there. Outside interference would cause whatever vision she was seeing in the trial to instantly vanish, like popping a bubble, regardless of how hard Amelia was working to overcome her past. But I know that tonight it won't do any good. Shaking his head, Subaru pushed away his uncertainty. He embraced the tormented Amelia, sitting her up and holding her against his chest. That instant, Amelia's body heavily arched back. And after trembling for a while, Subaru. Yeah, that's right. It's me, Amelia. You all right? Subaru shot Amelia a small smile when she recognized him and called out his name though she was still dazed. The warmth of his smile and embrace stalled Amelia's grasp on reality for a time. Soon, the situation she'd been placed in and the result of the trial would crash down upon her. After that, she would cry like a child. He waited for it in silence. The least Subaru could do was to gently embrace her so that her heart would not break in the process. And so until Amelia calmed down, he held her firmly in his arms, not allowing her to leave his grasp. I am really sorry. Ivy, calm down, so, let's talk. Now in a guest room in Ryuzu's house, Amelia's voice was choked as she spoke. A faint redness tinged her eyes, where heavy traces of the confusion and sorrow she felt a short while ago were still visible. Still, she was doing her best to be strong, so Subaru didn't want to interrupt. Well, sorry, for causing you trouble in the tomb. Really, I'm still, Emilia-tan, it's okay. When you send trouble my way, it's not a bother. Helping you is what I want to do. More importantly, you didn't hit anything when you fell down, right? If you did, I can give it a really gentle rub. Seems like I hit my butt a bit when I went down. It feels a little numb, gulp. Then, I'll be very careful, Miss Ram? Is that you jabbing your cane into my back? While Subaru was being particularly silly, Ram drove the tip of the cane she was gripping directly at him. When he pointed this out, she twisted the cane, causing Subaru to yelp with pain and leap away. Hey, you? That's a little too much, isn't it? Look at this blood oozing and everything. Lady Amelia, how's your condition? Don't leave out a single detail. Are you seriously gonna ignore me after all that, Ram? You really are a piece of work. As Ram respectfully checked on Amelia's health, she responded to Subaru's complaint by glancing at him as if he were an insect, snorting "ha" in an amused sort of way. The exchange brought a weak smile to Amelia's face. Thanks, both of you. I'm feeling all right. So we should talk about what happened inside. Her lips made a small smile, but she could not conceal the worry and fatigue dragging down the corners of her eyes, pulling on her cheeks, and filtering into her voice. Surrounding Amelia was everyone who had gathered at the tomb for the trial. In addition to Subaru and Ram, there was Garfield and Ryuzu, and, for some reason, Otto, who made 5. With everyone's eyes upon her, Amelia held her emotions in check to properly convey the details of the trial and to announce that it had ended in failure. Most of the conversation was identical to the previous time around. The only difference was, then why is Mr. Natsuki safe and sound after having gone inside? Raising his hand, Otto posed the question that Subaru had managed to wiggle his way out of answering the last time. He had hidden that he'd actually taken the trial and kept quiet about the fact that he was qualified to take it. That had been out of consideration for Amelia, to avoid putting extra pressure on her when she was facing the same trial, but, this time, after some thought, he changed his reply to the question. The reason's simple. Just as you saw from the light in the ruin, I was qualified to take the trial, too. So I took it, and I passed. Ha! At first, Subaru's declaration left everyone taken aback. Then, fierce unrest ran among them. In particular, Amelia's shock was tremendous. She'd taken the same trial and failed. Her purple eyes opened wide, looking like trembling gemstones as they focused on Subaru. Subaru nodded toward her as he continued to survey the other surprised reactions in the room. Sorry to surprise you like that. But to be honest, I was only lucky. The details of the trial just happened to be something I'd made my peace with beforehand. I wouldn't call it an easy win, though. Is that so, young Sue? However, that complicates things. A throbbing pain returned to Subaru's chest as he reminisced about meeting his parents in the world known as the trial. It was Ryuzu, representative of the sanctuary, who mulled over Subaru's words and furrowed her brows. The youthful-looking elder's grave voice made Ram fold her arms, narrowing her pink eyes. This has gotten complicated. There's no doubt about that. But if Barusu isn't spouting nonsense, then it's a great achievement. If his story is true, the barrier should be lifted now. Garf, what is the state of the barrier? All I can say is, the pact feels the same way to me in the old hag. So that was all a lie. Please die. Damn, you decided that way too early. Reeling from the sting of Ram's uncharacteristically hasty judgment, Subaru was clutching his head when he belatedly realized something. "What's wrong, Garfield? Why you making a scary face like that?" "It's nothin'. Barrier ain't down yet, right? What did you expect?" "I was just about to explain that stuff. Man, you guys are so impatient." Garfield, who'd been glaring at Subaru, crinkled his nose and averted his gaze. Put off by his demeanor, Subaru turned back toward Emilia. Just as before, Emilia's eyes were filled with worry and bewilderment as she said, "Tell us, Subaru. What did you see when you overcame the trial?" "Probably more accurate to say what I learned rather than what I saw. The trial's a real bully. And there ain't just one. Apparently, even after you finish the first, there's still 2 left, 3 in total. 2 more." The worry in Emilia's eyes deepened, which made Subaru's chest tighten so much it hurt. The first challenge, the trial of the past, provoked unspeakable anguish for her. The thought of 2 more was simply staggering. This might be going too deep into the weeds, but who exactly did you hear all this from while you were in the tomb? Who? I didn't talk to anyone. When I started the trial, I heard my own voice in my head. I think it probably affects different people in different ways. It was close to the truth for him to say that he'd simply come to understand the information rather than hearing it from someone else. Subaru had no memory of meeting a person in the tomb, so it was a natural assumption to make. It is said that in rare cases, one can understand how to use a mattia merely by touching it. This could be something similar. I have not yet had the opportunity to touch something as precious as a mattia. I suppose you wouldn't. You have the look of a pauper. It hasn't even been half a day since Miss Ram and I first met, has it? Ram had quickly decided how she was going to interact with Otto. Setting aside their exchange, Subaru sat right beside Emilia on the bed she was resting in. Then, he locked eyes with her as he addressed her directly. "Emilia, there's something I want to suggest. You might not like it very much, though. Suggest? What do you mean by that? Can I challenge the trial in the tomb in your place and clear it?" The words Subaru had uttered fiercely unsettled Emilia. From her perspective, they were completely unexpected. From his, they required courage and resolve to say. Subaru would take the trial, liberating the sanctuary in her place. It was a thought that had occurred to him during his conversation with Garfield on the way back to Erlam village the last time around. Mid-trip, Garfield had questioned Subaru, who was sending Emilia to the trial in spite of the agony she had to endure because of her repeated failures. Garfield had wondered whether overcoming one's past was truly necessary. Naturally, Subaru couldn't simply accept that idea without any thought, but it had undoubtedly been a bolt from the blue. He acknowledged it was worth suggesting as an option, at least. "I want to be there for you. I don't know what you're facing from your past, but if it's enough to make you cry like that and bring out so much suffering on your face, I want to reach out to you. Subaru. It should be fine even if it's me taking the trial and liberating the sanctuary. There's nothing that says you have to go through a hard time and face up to your past." The way Subaru slowly shook his head and spoke gently to her made Emilia's gaze wander. He understood Emilia's inner turmoil. Facing her past had been excruciating. If there was some way to avoid it, some part of her must have wanted to do exactly that and leave the rest to Subaru. It was her strong sense of responsibility and nobility that did not permit her to abandon a burden once she had decided to carry it on her shoulders. Moreover, her gentle nature left her afraid that Subaru might have to endure a pain comparable to hers in the trials that would follow. If that kindness was the shackle binding her, Subaru had to tell her it wasn't necessary to. "Man, I shut up and listen for 1 minute, and you suddenly think you can decide every damn thing on your own, huh?" Before Subaru could say anything that might have broken those shackles, someone in a particularly foul mood called him out from behind. The speaker growled through his fangs, crinkled his nose, and curled his back in a cat-like posture as he unleashed another stream of words. "Me, I'm opposed to anyone besides the princess, besides Lady Emilia taking the trial. At the very least, I'll be damned before I let the likes of you lift that barrier." Wah! From Subaru's perspective, this was the second time Garfield had struck him with a bolt from the blue. However, the impact of the first paled in comparison to that of this one. Subaru, unable to reconcile the words with their speaker, was completely dumbfounded. Seeing his apparent confusion, Garfield pounded the incomprehensible reality home. Let me say it again. If you ask me, no one but the princess should take the trial. I ain't lettin' the old head get it twisted either. Think of this as my rule. Wait. Subaru desperately rambled in response to Garfield's sudden declaration. Inside his mind, he was unspeakably shocked and baffled. Of course he was. The source of Subaru's suggestion was none other than Garfield from the last time around. Why the hell are you the one who's against it? Huh? That surprised I'm not all for this plan? Ain't you an optimist? Hey, don't get all bent out of shape. If anyone should be frowning and complaining here, it's me. Last time around, Garfield was the one who had browbeaten Subaru to take the trial. Yet here he was, shooting down the very same plan. He couldn't figure out the true intent behind Garfield's change of mind. I'm not doing a great job reining in my whirlpool of emotions right now, but can you tell me exactly why you're against it? As far as you're concerned, the faster the sanctuary is liberated, the better, right? It ain't a question of sooner or later. This is one of those, issues of status. Ain't that right, old hag? Though the way he put it was unbearable, I cannot refute what young Gar says. That said, there is an issue with how he phrased it. Hell, even Ryuzu was against it. Subaru was bewildered that not only Garfield was stubbornly opposing him, but the elder was as well. Considering how emotional and temperamental Garfield appeared, it was at least understandable how his opinion could change at the most inopportune time and place. However, Subaru wouldn't have guessed Ryuzu would react this way. In response to Subaru's earnest gaze, Ryuzu waved an oversized sleeve as she picked up where she had left off. I understand young Su's point about lifting the barrier because the sooner that happens the better. However, I wish to follow young Rosa's plan as closely as possible. Roswell's plan, Lady Amelia should obtain the sanctuary's freedom by her own hand. Amelia's breath caught as soon as she heard those words when Ryuzu narrowed her eyes and spoke. Amelia touched a hand to her own breast, her long lashes hovering over downcast eyes as her voice quivered. I have to do it. It's no good if it isn't me. I need to do this. No, Amelia, there's no, it's all right. Subaru, you don't need to force your way into going in my place. I'm just a little surprised because this is all so sudden. But now that I know what needs to happen, knowing the trial was about facing the past, she could emotionally prepare for it. That's what Amelia insisted, but it was already a proven fact that no matter how strong her resolve, it wasn't the same as a foolproof plan. If nothing else, letting Amelia continue like this would mean watching the past devastate her for the next 3 days. This foreknowledge was what brought such sorrow to Subaru's eyes. That was why, Subaru. Are you thinking that you can't trust me with this? Wah? Right as his mind drifted off for a second, Amelia posed a question to him, her voice quivering with worry. When he let out a surprised breath, Amelia weakly shook her head side to side and continued. It's because you saw me fail. That's why you think you can't trust me to complete the trial. That's why you want to do it in my place. No, Amelia, that's not it. It's just. It isn't like you absolutely have to deal with the past but if I don't face it, then I can't pass the trial. If I can't do even that much, there's no way I can become king. I have to help the villagers and the people of the sanctuary get out of this place. Amelia firmly embraced her own shoulders as she swept Subaru's words away. Her slender nails dug into the skin, as if she meant to hurt her timid self. I can't keep relying on you all the time, Subaru. It was just the other day that you became so badly hurt for my sake, and now it's about to happen again. I won't put you through that. It's fine that way, Amelia. This might be the wrong way to say this, but this is one of those, give and take situations. Wait, would it make more sense to say giving the right person the right job? What I'm trying to get at is that I just so happen to have a better matchup when it comes to this trial. Since it seems I can handle this, might as well have me take care of it. That's all. You'll definitely have great opportunities to give it your all in the future. Isn't this one of those important opportunities? If I avert my eyes simply because I don't like what I see, then push everything onto you, Subaru, before running away, what does that make me? How good would it be if he could simply yell back, and what's wrong with running away? If running from something awful was possible, if someone had a chance to not look at something bitter or to turn away from suffering, and in so doing, they could breathe easier, then that's exactly what they should do. That was how Subaru had lived his life up to that point. Even if people looked down on that way of living as the weakling's path, he could almost certainly say with conviction that it was not something to be ashamed of. And yet, Subaru was unable to affirm Emilia's weakness. He didn't understand why he couldn't bring himself to say the words. But when she noticed that Subaru had fallen silent, Emilia shut her eyes with all her might, casting them downward as her lips tightened. Seeing that stabbed at Subaru's chest, and when he tried to say something even though he hadn't been able to think of anything meaningful, for now, let's leave it at that. It was neither Subaru nor Emilia who punctuated their discussion with that brief statement. The speaker had quietly circled around Emilia's back, gently touching a pale palm to the young girl's mouth. An instant later, Emilia, her strength suddenly draining out of her, lost consciousness, tipping forward as she crumpled. Subaru hurried to catch her. Laying in his arms, tranquil breaths slipped from Emilia's sleeping face. Then he turned to another Rams and asked, "What did you do?" "I gave her a whiff of incense to help her relax." "Perhaps you're upset that I used such a forceful method." "That was definitely aggressive. But you did the right thing. Sorry for making you go through the trouble." "Receiving an apology about Lady Emilia from you, Barusu, is strange indeed." "When did you inherit Lady Emilia's guardianship from the Great Spirit?" "That wasn't what I meant," he wanted to say, but his shoulders drooped instead. Subaru knew the retort wasn't very convincing. It was a fact that, whatever the reason, Puck's refusal to show himself made Subaru even more protective of Emilia than usual. His knowledge of how the trial would wear her down made him rash as well. What's more, it seemed Emilia was well aware of this tendency of his. Ha! Either way, looks like we're done talking for now. Subaru was at a loss for words, and Emilia was unconscious. Seeing the two of them like that, Garfield snorted as if he was bored. Though Subaru took issue with his attitude, he couldn't bring himself to snap back with a retort. The conversation for that evening was over. There was no denying that fact. However, it'd be nice if we could talk to the princess again tomorrow. Subaru had no reply for the murmur that Garfield added either. "Can I talk to you for a minute? There's something I want to ask." There, in the settlement, illuminated at night by a bonfire, Subaru called out to the figures walking ahead of him. "What's that? You got something more to say?" Two individuals, Garfield and Ryuzu, came to a halt so they could turn around. Garfield was in a foul mood, while Ryuzu's expression was unreadable. Subaru scratched his cheek as he spoke to the pair. "Hey, don't be so combative. I just have a little question." "A question, is it? If it's something we can answer, then I don't see why not. What is it you wish to ask?" Garfield loomed with his fangs bared, though Ryuzu held him back and gave Subaru permission to proceed. Grateful for her demeanor, Subaru abruptly puzzled over something. Come to think of it, this house used to be where Ryuzu stayed, right? Then where is Ryuzu staying while Emilia and the rest of us are staying here? Hey, why are you even asking a question like that? Let me make this clear. If you even try and do something to the hag, you can bet I ain't gonna forgive you. Ow. What gives, lady? It's time to give the stupidity a rest, young Gar. Do you think a youngling would want to do anything with a fossil like me? It's obvious he's simply curious. Ryuzu sighed with an exasperated air as she dug her nails into Garfield's hip. Certainly, Garfield's suspicion was way off the mark, but it still felt kind of strange to hear Ryuzu describe herself as an old lady. Either way, Subaru had come to talk about his idle curiosity, so he cleared his throat and continued. You opposed my suggestion back there. I want to know the real reason why. Mind telling me? Like we said before, liberating the sanctuary should be something Lady Emilia accomplishes on her own. That's what young Rose desires, after all. You said that it's Roswell's plan. Meaning, when Subaru suddenly recalled the heated debate he had shared with Roswell the last time around, his ignorance caused wrinkles to break out on his brow. Dealing with the menace of the witch cult and liberating the sanctuary, Roswell claimed he'd set everything up so that Amelia would be credited with the success of both. Subaru could agree that Roswell's plan presented unique advantages for Amelia's bid for the throne. However, he felt that line of thinking was too heartless. Do the two of you agree with that guy's methods? Hey, don't get the wrong idea. Me? I hate the bastard, too. But things ain't that simple. Young Sue, I understand how you must feel. I hardly find it a pleasant topic either. But as the settlement's representative, my position also requires me to think of what will come after the barrier is lifted. Prodded by Ryuzu's statement, Subaru grimaced in bewilderment. Garfield observed Subaru's state and went, "Now look," scratching his head in irritation as he went on. Even if the barrier's lifted, that don't mean the people living here just go poof and vanish. If how and where they live changes, who do you think is gonna take care of geezers and hags who can't even tell left from right? I get it now. Even if the barrier's lifted and everyone formally moves into the fiefdom, you're still under Roswell's care. That's why Ryuzu and the others are. We do not wish to risk our relationship with young Rose. I am sorry for you and yours, young Sue. You know, this is making me trust Roswell less and less, considering how low Subaru's opinion of Roswell had dropped the last time around. The current conversation was a truly bitter pill to swallow. Subaru's reply elicited a pained smile from Ryuzu, while Garfield gave a single, strong click of his fangs. Anyway, we've laid out our demands. The princess takes the trial. Me, I won't let you take it, whatever qualifications you've got. Stop calling her princess. It sounds like you're making fun of Amelia. Can't call her half-demon or princess? Man, you complain a lot. Besides, Sir Knight, if she ain't a princess, then who the hell have you been protecting this whole damn time? Twisting his hip, Garfield peered up at Subaru as he spoke in a provocative tone. Subaru fell into his thoughts a short while, before coming to his senses and lifting a finger to thrust toward Garfield. The part where you called me Sir Knight just now, could you say it one more time? The hell you getting all worked up for? Garfield seemed fed up with Subaru's unexpectedly bashful reaction when Ryuzu raised a hand between them. Then she brought that hand to her mouth as she let out a little yawn. Young Sue, could we leave it at that? The late hours of night are hard on the elderly. Let's continue this tomorrow. Given your appearance, it feels super weird hearing that from you, but roger that. Sorry for keeping you. Ha! The Abengam comes on thick. Don't you dare go anywhere even near the tomb. Not sure what that phrase is supposed to mean, but I get the gist of it. I've had enough of the tomb for one night, anyway. After seeing off the sleepy Ryuzu and the thorny Garfield, Subaru, by his lonesome, lifted his head and gazed up at the starry sky. The night sky was full of clouds, but since there were barely any light sources on the ground, the starlight was incredible. He felt like nature was cleansing his heart. The situation's too dire for a warm and fuzzy mood, though. After a dizzying day and return by death, Subaru's body and spirit were both laden with fatigue. But he slapped his cheeks to energize himself and turned toward the group's temporary accommodations. And then, so what did you think of that discussion just now? I'd like to hear an outsider's opinion. Normally, wouldn't one call it a third-party opinion? When you call it an outsider's opinion, you make both my position and opinion feel overly estranged. This is my way of being considerate of your position. If you're just an outsider in the end, it gives you a chance to save face, right? Damn it, man, don't make me say it out loud. Such consideration is pointless when you already involved me in the earlier conversation. As they bantered, Otto slowly emerged from the temporary accommodations. He'd probably eavesdropped on the last conversation from beginning to end. However, he prefaced without the barest hint of shame, if you were asking for my honest opinion, then I'd have to say that what Garfield and Ryuzu said makes perfect sense, doesn't it? They understand the Marquis's aim, and there is Lady Amelia's standing as a royal selection candidate to consider as well. Mr. Natsuki, you no doubt believe that even if you overcome the trial in her place, the prestige of the exploit would still belong to Lady Amelia, but would something like that be accepted by all the involved parties present here? In other words, would doing things that way win their support? Even I get the logic behind that. However you think about it, Emilia liberating the sanctuary would be the ideal move. But, as Subaru trailed off, a third party smashed right through his hesitation. Lady Emilia cannot overcome the trial? When Subaru turned toward the voice, there stood Ram, who had supposedly been tucking Emilia into bed. Subaru reacted with a bitter expression and shook his head. I'm not saying it's impossible. But anyone can tell it's hellish to make any progress in a short span of time, right? The barrier isn't a problem we can leave alone for a long time. I suppose not. At the very least, I would like to conclude it within 3 years, before the royal selection is decided. That's way longer than I was thinking. At first, Subaru thought this was another display of Ram's peculiar brand of flippancy, but her frank expression made him seriously consider the possibility. Meanwhile, Otto silently crossed his arms and nodded before adding his thoughts. I actually understand why Mr. Natsuki is so concerned. Considering the burden on the evacuated villagers and the current living conditions in the sanctuary, food stores included, the day it all breaks down does not seem far off to me. Suddenly being forced to live as refugees puts a lot of stress on people. And then there's the inhabitants of the sanctuary who have to give out all their food. Their dissatisfaction is probably about to explode any moment. Which is why you would like to do something before that happens. So what's your plan? Feels kinda unsettling to have the conversation move so quickly. If possible, I'd like to propose freeing the villagers from the sanctuary before there's an irreparable breakdown in relations. With Ram and Otto, Subaru brought up the idea of releasing the hostages just like he'd done the previous time around. His proposal had been accepted once before, but he didn't know if that would happen again. After all, the condition for agreeing to the proposal last time had been for Subaru to take the trial. This time, the representatives of the sanctuary had precisely forbidden him from doing that. He expected negotiations would not be easy. I'm sure they have no desire for mutual destruction either. Given the nature of the barrier, Lady Emilia cannot depart until someone brings the trial to an end. It would seem most of the proposal's premise has already been fulfilled. Otto nodded as he interpreted the parts of Subaru's proposal that hadn't been elaborated on enough. Seeing Otto logically break things down, Ram went narrowing her eyes as she spoke with a hint of praise. I'm surprised. The pet you took in is worth more than I presumed, Barusu. Isn't he? I found him tied up on the side of the road. I'll take care of him, so can I keep him? Only if you take proper care of him. Could you two stop referring to me like I'm a dog or a cat? Both of you are seriously in tune, aren't you? When Otto bit back, Subaru and Ram both let out a hearty sigh. This was solid proof they were truly in sync, but Subaru sank into thought about something weightier. Based on the earlier exchange, he didn't think Garfield would simply go along with his proposal to free the villagers. That said, Subaru had a reason why he couldn't take things slow. He had to seriously start thinking ahead to the situation that had caused his return by death. All things considered, it would seem that this proposal will become the focus of the conversation to follow. Yeah, I suppose it. Wait, what conversation? He really is hopeless, no? What are you talking about? It's a bad habit of yours to decide things all by yourself. Ram seemed like she seriously felt sorry for him, which made Subaru stamp the ground as he asserted the unfairness of it all. His childlike reaction caused Ram's shoulders to sink as her pity deepened. Since Lady Emilia was haggard after the Tombs trial, and the ongoing situation has been hard on Barusa's small head, I am trying to be considerate, but I cannot have you forgetting a most important promise. You know, I have a bit of trauma about not keeping promises. Remind me what this one was again? That after the trial, Master Roswell would make time for you. The words, which Ram said in a rather sour tone, made Subaru go ah as his mouth fell open. Folding her arms at the stupid look on his face, Ram continued nonetheless. That's where you were supposed to speak about circumstances to date, and what's to follow. Isn't that right? The important points of the latest return by death were completely different from those of previous times. During a normal, though it was difficult to use that word in these situations, or usual instance of return by death, Subaru often presumed that the situations instigated by various assailants and the labor required to counter the threat they posed were the most important. Using the previous loop as an example, the hostile party that had caused the return by death situation was the witch cult, and Subaru had borrowed the power of other factions, such as crushes, to deal with them. In a similar vein, the attacker this time around was Elsa, the bowel hunter, and his options for dealing with her would probably come down to fight or flight. But this time, there was an issue he clearly needed to prioritize above that. Namely, what had happened to Frederica and the others by the time Elsa killed me? In the current loop, after he'd returned to the mansion, Subaru had felt extremely wary toward Frederica. The crystal she had given Emilia was the reason he had been teleported while they were on their way to the sanctuary. He later went back to the mansion fully intending to figure out her true motives. Who would have ever thought it'd be Elsa's blade greeting me? Thanks to that, well, crap, thanks to that I got a return by death without learning a damn thing. Subaru wouldn't say he had truly come away with absolutely nothing at all, but what little information he'd gleaned was not enough. Now that he knew there was an enemy lurking, the largest pending issue was the uncertainty of who her victims would be. Besides Frederica, there were 3 others at the mansion. Petra, Beatrice, and Rem. Were the girls at the mansion all right? If Frederica was in fact hostile to Subaru and the others, did that mean she was connected to Elsa? Either way, I doubt that insane woman would have any reason to hold back against Rem and the others. His memories bubbled up unbidden, the pain of Elsa's wicked blade and his sense of helplessness at being unable to stop her vile deeds. She'd killed Emilia. She'd killed Felt. She'd killed Old Man Rom. She'd killed Subaru himself. There were few things Subaru had greater faith in than the tastes of the butcher known as the bowel hunter. Elsa would never let her prey at her chosen slaughterhouse slip away. That was why I've got to get back to the mansion without a moment to spare. I have to figure out what happened. Along with the liberation of the sanctuary, this was a challenge Subaru had to take on. I see. Now I grasped the situation. After hearing Subaru's long explanation, Roswell, lying on his side in bed, nodded deeply. The room set aside for Roswell's convalescence contained only him and Subaru. Setting Otto's thoughts aside, Ram seemed unhappy she couldn't also be in attendance, but this was how it had to be. After all, when men met to plot wicked deeds, the fewer of them, the better. I must say, these are results beyond anything I could have hoped for. Not only was the witch cult driven off, to think you even participated in the hunt of the white whale at the Lipez Plains. We can discuss that again when invitations for an awards ceremony get thrown around. My exploits weren't exactly small, so I figure some prestige is coming my way. I get the sense that some prestige is hardly enough to accurately describe the acclaim you've earned. Moreover, I wish to thank you on a personal level for your cooperation in subjugating the white whale. And what of Sir Wilhelm? Closing one eye, Roswell posed the question with only his yellow eye open. It made Subaru gulp down. I didn't think I'd hear Wilhelm's name out of your mouth. He was there. Wilhelm was the one who finished off the white whale. It was incredible. He's seriously something else. I see. That is most splendid. Subaru knitted his brows, suspicious of the intensity in Roswell's murmur. The fact that Wilhelm had avenged his wife, achieving his long-cherished desire, had delighted Roswell. Roswell, do you know Wilhelm? No, I have never met him. One of my ancestors did, briefly. Therefore, I choose to toast the sword devil's tenacity from a distance, entirely on my own whim. That is all. That is all, Roswell had said, but the emotions surfacing in his expression seemed conflicted. Subaru couldn't bring himself to blindly trust what he had just heard, but he also had no time to pursue the matter any further. This really bugs me, but let's move on to the main issue. You've read my proposal, right? I had intended to discuss rewarding you for your exploits as well, but, no matter, let's continue. You wanted to discuss your plan to request the freeing of the Erlem villagers from the sanctuary, yes? When Subaru urged him onward, Roswell smiled back and touched the bandages wound around his chest as he nodded. Certainly, the fact that Lady Amelia has entered the barrier means Garfield and the others' aims have already been realized. Lady Amelia cannot depart unless the barrier is lifted. Surely it is not necessary for other hostages to remain within the barrier as insurance. Seems like a rational plan to me. It's not kicking the sanctuary's problems down the road or abandoning them. This is a reasonable proposal, so the other side ought to be willing to compromise. A reasonable proposal, you say? It is not that you actually have a different concern? For instance, when Lady Amelia's heart is crushed by the trial, the people of the sanctuary might use the presence of the villagers as a shield, using them as leverage to force her to challenge the tomb against her will. Which would make this your way of nipping that in the bud, or something like that. Closing one eye, Roswell stared at Subaru with only his yellow eye, something Subaru was used to seeing by then. Subaru folded his arms, then leadenly drew in his chin as he replied. Nah, sorry. Never thought of that. In fact, just imagining it is scary. Gimme a moment. Oh my? Perhaps I overthought it? How rude of me. I'm sorry to surprise you. Roswell smiled, glossing over what was either bottomless pessimism or a vicious thought process. While those disinterested eyes and that smile were still trained on him, Subaru mentally refuted the possibility Roswell had raised. Purely as an option, it was certainly one potential course of action. However, no one involved in the current events was the kind of person to carry it out. It had only been a few days, but Subaru was confident he knew where Garfield, Ryuzu, and the other residents of the sanctuary stood on this. Either way, I understand your proposal, so what is it you desire from me? I want this proposal to go to Ryuzu and the others through you, not me. This time, it seems like they're not gonna compromise with me. This time, And why is that? Seems like that Garfield bastard's taken a disliking to me. I don't have the time to get through to a moody guy like that. That means it's better to have the idea come from someone other than me. Opposition to Subaru taking the trial included, Garfield's demeanor had clearly changed from the last time around. His stubborn demeanor and the almost outright hostile glint in his eyes were things Subaru didn't remember encountering before. He wondered if it was something he'd said, or if he'd done something to rub the guy the wrong way. Either way, Subaru decided it was best for him to avoid coming into contact with Garfield this time around. If he gets hard-headed about my point of view for emotional reasons, that'll put everyone in a bind. It's a little scary how Ryuzu just goes along with whatever Garfield says, too. And thus, my turn has come. Okay, very well. I shall speak to the elder. But Garfield hates me as well, so I am concerned I may not be able to bring him around right away. As a fellow person whom Garfield hated, Roswell readily consented, leaving Subaru to make a pained face as he entrusted his hopes to the man. The plan itself would likely be accepted by the other party after considerable grumbling. They would probably promise to free the villagers within the next several days. However, this was only the first step of Subaru's ultimate plan. New then, is your business with me at an end? Not yet. If anything, this business is more important than that proposal and everything that's wrapped up with it. That preface made Roswell's cheeks harden for just a moment, but that stiffness soon morphed into a smile as he ran a finger through his long, indigo hair. Then, tell me. What is it that you desire? I want to go tell the people back at Earlham Village that the hostages will be released from the sanctuary just like we discussed. I want to tell all the worried folks that their families are coming home. In other words, you wish to go before the hostages are freed and the barrier is lifted. I'll return to the village alone. Of course, I'll be heading to the mansion, too, where Frederick is scheming something or other. With his shrill voice and heated gaze, Subaru transmitted his exact thoughts to Roswell. Subaru had thoroughly reviewed the circumstances surrounding return by death, had shown consideration to Amelia, who was giving it her all to face the trial, and had been wary of Garfield, resident of the sanctuary. At a glance, it seemed as though Subaru had handled everything quite calmly. However, even at that very moment, an undeniable impatience threatened to tear the inside of his chest asunder. How was Elsa connected to Frederica, one of the few remaining at the mansion, and what in the world had happened there? Subaru desperately wanted to find out as soon as possible, to the point that he couldn't bear to sit around and wait for however many days it would take to persuade everyone. I understand your concern. However, to the extent of my knowledge, Frederica is not one prone to rash. The hell do you know? Somehow, Subaru's interruption silenced Roswell's attempts to alleviate his worries. Dark, heavy emotions were infused within the young boy's low voice. Of course there were. Roswell's private opinion of Frederica was entirely irrelevant. What Subaru had seen was the truth. In the future, something would occur, and that reality held far greater weight to him than anything Roswell thought. Don't say stuff like that. It doesn't suit a smart guy like you. Frederica's the one who put that crystal in Emilia's hands. That's evidence she's up to something. You said as much, didn't you? Even so, she isn't one to intentionally bring harm to others. She has not the courage to do so. I don't have much courage either. But that doesn't guarantee she wouldn't try something desperate. There was no firm, clear answer what exactly prompted humans to take dramatic actions in extreme circumstances. It certainly wasn't courage that drove Subaru forward. It was nothing more than a sense that something bothered him. Roswell, the trip will only take half a day. If it's just me going with Pat Lash, I can be back in a day's time. Please, give me the permission I need to do just that. Even assuming I do permit it, if it becomes clear that Frederica bears enmity toward you, indeed, if she takes hostile action against you, what will you do? The girl has demi-human blood flowing within her. The circumstances of her duties at the mansion mean that she has learned a certain degree of martial arts. Unfortunately, I do not think you stand a chance against her. That's none of your business. The straightforward problem Roswell pointed out made Subaru's throat tighten. Depending on how events played out, it was possible Subaru would have to face both Frederica and Elsa at the same time. Opposing them would be Subaru alone. Petra and the sleeping Rem couldn't be considered ready for a fight. He had no confidence he could even get in touch with Beatrice. All things considered, the only combat strength he could bring from the sanctuary back to the mansion was Emilia can't go because of the barrier, Roswell's heavily injured, Otto's definitively a non-combatant. Wait, is this checkmate? I suppose it is, though with a single exception. When Subaru blanched, Roswell spread his fingers toward Subaru's pale face. The fingertips stole Subaru's attention, as Roswell smoothly wiggled them around and continued. I shall add a condition of my own to your proposed plan of action. As I was just saying, I cannot send you alone to a certain death. Therefore, to ensure that does not come to pass, to ensure that. Roswell clapped his hands together, opened them, then spoke. Take Ram with you and go. I am quite certain she shall be of aid to you. To put it bluntly, I am not thrilled with this situation. You're saying that after we've come this far, big sis? The next morning, Ram was the first to open her mouth when they arrived at the settlement's entrance. With a sour look on his face, Subaru followed suit. It was a rather Ram-like thing to say, eliciting a wry smile from Subaru as he scratched his head. As a result of the discussion the night before, Subaru had swallowed Roswell's terms. It was plain fact that Ram was the only one who could be relied upon for combat, making her the sole countermeasure against Frederica. Ram had indicated her disapproval but relented and came along obediently in the end. That said, it didn't mean her chagrin had simply vanished. With Master Roswell's poor condition, I can't help but feel concerned about leaving his side. I mean, it's not like you can do anything by staying here either, right? Also, I was speechless when I heard it was Garfield who bandaged those wounds and not you. Don't be ridiculous. If I did it and Master Roswell's injuries worsened, where would we be then? You should feel a little worse about the fact that you'd make it worse. Subaru's voice rose as he took in Ram, who was utterly shameless about her poor ability. He sighed deeply, hearing his voice echoing in the distance as morning embraced the sanctuary. It was the start of the day after the discussion. Their preparations had been as quick as humanly possible. But considering his unease over his return by death, Subaru truly wished they could have departed the preceding night. At night, the forest of Grimaldi is quite dangerous. Even without the barrier, those woods form a natural stronghold that bars the entry of humans. Don't be reading a man's mind, sheesh. It was written all over your face. Are you that worried about the girl you left at the mansion? Ram had a sharp intuition and had handily discerned the reason for Subaru's unease. Ram was referring to Petra, freshly employed at the mansion. If Frederica turned out to be hostile to them, the girl's presence was Subaru and Ram's Achilles' heel. He wanted to avert a situation like that at all costs. But that wasn't all. It's not just Petra I'm worried about. If you mean Lady Beatrice, she should still be in the archive. Ram regarded Subaru's sullenness with a questioning look, not mentioning the other person left in the mansion, namely, Remington. That was natural. Ram didn't remember Rem, and Subaru hadn't spoken about her yet. The nice way to put it was that he hadn't had a chance to bring it up, but in truth, he was simply afraid. Of course, he believed that it was absolutely necessary for him to bring it up during their trip to the mansion. I'm not super eager to talk about it, but, emotionally, it'll be better to bring it up when it's just the two of us. Sorry, that's my bad, Patlash. It's not like I forgot that you're here, too. Overhearing Subaru's murmur, the land dragon rubbed her nose against Subaru's shoulder in apparent objection. Patlash, Subaru's beloved land dragon, would play the most important role in their journey from the sanctuary back to the mansion. He was relying on Patlash's grasp of the way home, and this time, no one would be riding a dragon carriage, it'd be him and Ram mounted on Patlash's back as she ran for the entire return trip. She's a good land dragon, making up for her all too lacking master. I pity her taste in men, though. I can't say anything back about that. I really can't, but it still bugs me, heading back snuggled between two fine ladies, huh? Just showing off at this point, ain't ya? When Subaru's shoulders sank in misery, he heard a voice coming from behind, causing him to turn back with a scowl. The speaker, who was the very person he had expected, walked over while trampling the grass before stopping right beside the two riders and one mount. Didn't think you'd be seeing us off at this early hour. Real polite of you. Geezers and hags get up stupid early. Me, I live here so I picked up the habit. Wait, none of that's important right now. You were the one who started talking about it, Garf. When Garfield came into view, Ram looked genuinely surprised. However, that was true for Subaru as well. He'd seriously never expected Garfield to give them a proper send-off. Are you that worried about me and Ram riding together? Just so you know, it's not like my back's touching anything. And even if it did, all there'd be is something hard as a board. Oh, shut it. Me, I know that more than anyone in the whole war. Ow? You certainly do not know that. I'll slap you silly. Don't say that after you slap someone. Incidentally, stop smacking me, too. Ram simultaneously slapped the vulgar pair's cheeks as her shoulders sank in exasperation. Then, with handprints plastered on them, Subaru and Garfield's faces met. Anyway, thanks for coming to see us off. Also, does that mean you've heard? The talk about letting that lot of outsiders leave? I heard it straight out of that bastard Roswell's mouth last night. I don't like you holding talks without me, but I ain't got any problems with it. Yeah? That's a big help. I couldn't help thinking that in the worst case, you were here to stop us by force. If that happened, I'd be forced to throw Ram as far as I could and use her as a decoy. Hey, I'd never fall for that, I wouldn't, right? Hell if I know. Ram, say something to him already. After shouting angrily at Garfield, who'd suddenly lost his confidence, Subaru called out to Ram, who was right beside him. And it was then that he noticed Ram was knitting her brows, apparently contemplating something. Ram? What is it? I am merely getting a headache from Barusu and Garf's idiotic conversation. However, when Subaru asked to see if everything was okay, Ram shook her head and replied in her usual manner. In so doing, she cut off that line of conversation, leaving Subaru unable to pursue the matter. With that concluded, Subaru reoriented toward Garfield to speak with him. Well, we're off for a little bit. I intend to be back tomorrow, so take care until then. You're fine with not greeting the princess first? I'm even more surprised you're worried about Amelia and me. But it's fine. I left a letter, and I asked Otto to stay with her if she's having nightmares or anything. That guy's got it rough, too. He's going through the middle of Temtem Manor for sure. When Garfield rattled off one of his mystery phrases, Subaru accepted his concern with genuine gratitude. He hadn't gotten a chance to debrief Emilia about the discussion he had with Roswell the night before. He was setting out before she even woke up. Subaru didn't have time to offer explanations, arguments, or excuses. Since, of course, his leaving would make Emilia worry, he'd left a letter behind, but when I'm not by her side, I can't stop worrying. So I'm leaving her in your hands, Garfield. Wha? The hell are you thinking, Aunt Rustin the princess to me? I suppose because you're strong, you're thinking of the sanctuary, and you're well aware it's gonna be a problem for you if anything happens to Emilia. Also, worst case, I can try asking Ram to seduce you into going along with, like what? It seems you haven't done any reflection yet, Barusu. Don't smack me right in the same spot you did earlier. Are you a demon? Wait, you are. Teary-eyed, Subaru raised a complaint about his punishment, which Ram met with an amused ha. Garfield was completely lost, having gone from mid-conversation a moment before to speechless. But after a brief silence, he audibly clenched his sharp fangs and said, "Fine. For now, I'll go along with all this madness, really? That's great. I'm so happy my face is swelling up, Ram. I'll take care of that bastard's wounds, too, so quit looking so damn worried. This ain't like you." As Subaru rubbed his cheek, Ram seemed to show no outward emotion when Garfield made his comment. Ram's cheeks tensed ever so slightly as she responded. "What an impertinent thing to say, especially coming from you, Garf." Having said her piece, she turned her back to him. She was no doubt signaling that the conversation was over. It was true that taking too long before departing would be a problem. Subaru also wanted to leave the sanctuary right away, but... Come to think of it, do you have anything to hand to me this time? Huh? What are you talking about? Right before mounting Patlash, Subaru asked a question that left Garfield perplexed. He acted like a question mark was hanging over his head as Subaru idly reminisced about his old world. Last time, when Garfield had accompanied him for a portion of the journey back to Erlam village, he had handed over a crystal to Subaru, who had been anxious about his reunion with Frederica. At the time, Garfield had said he didn't know if it would be of any help. In the end, Subaru had perished without ever meeting Frederica face to face during the previous series of events. 3 more days had passed before his return trek, but this time, no more than half a day had gone by. It was natural that Garfield had no reason to be generous with Subaru. However, Garf, will you show any consideration to your dear Ram as she heads off to meet Frederica? What are you saying I should do? You should do your duty for the woman you have fallen for. Do you not wish to be of aid to her? Act in like a woman only when it suits ya. Damn it all. Ram maintained her brazen demeanor. Garfield clicked his tongue and tossed something her way. For an instant, the morning sunlight reflected blue off the crystal, just like Subaru remembered. Guessing what Subaru had been aiming for, Ram forced Garfield to cough it up. All Subaru could say was that it was completely in character for her. Internally sighing in admiration at Ram's skill, Subaru mounted Patlash and reached out to her with his hand. Unexpectedly, Ram politely accepted, and with that, the pair finished mounting the land dragon. After that, Subaru waved a hand to Garfield, entrusting the sanctuary to him once more. Take care of Emilia. And as much as you can, let her know I apologize with all my heart and mind, Kay? You can tell her crap like that using the mouth you were born with, damn it. As though Garfield's angry shout was a starting signal, Subaru commanded Patlash to set off. The pitch-black land dragon accelerated, tearing through the serene air as they cut through the forest. As they continued to go faster and faster, Garfield quickly receded from sight. So, Barusu? Do you think that thing of Garf's will be of any use? The effect of the wind repel blessing meant the riders didn't feel any shaking or wind, even on the back of a running land dragon. As they sped on, Ram, sitting behind Subaru with her hands around his hips, tinkered with the crystal she had just received. It was a crystal pendant tied with a string, and it really did look a lot like Frederica's. I have no idea what effect it'll have. What do you think? You've known him a lot longer than I have. I didn't even know he had this, so of course I have no clue. But the fact that the two have similar objects does make one wonder, doesn't it? Frederica and Garfield, connected by blood, though their views on liberating the sanctuary diverged. What role did the crystals play in their relationship? You know, you've had a pretty somber expression for a while now. Around the time Subaru had reached that conclusion, he noticed Ram had gone silent and her face was unusually gloomy. Subaru remembered seeing the same look when he tried to sweep things under the rug during the earlier conversation. I'm no Garfield, but it's true that this isn't like you. If there's something on your mind, you should talk about it. When he prodded a second time, Ram's pink eyes narrowed, and after a moment's hesitation, she spoke. Barusu, something felt amiss earlier. Her statement caused Subaru to tilt his head as he asked, amiss? At the height of your ridiculousness, you mentioned throwing Ram somewhere as a decoy, yes? I did, or at least I think I did. It was mixed up with a lot of other stuff, so I don't remember too clearly. You did. And for some odd reason, those words tugged at my chest. It's as if her words trailed off, but after a pause, Ram continued. As if such a thing had actually happened before. For a brief moment, Ram's murmur made his brows furrow, but then Subaru realized something. It dawned on him so late he wanted to strangle himself. Subaru hurling Ram was indeed something that had actually taken place. The only catch was that fact probably didn't exist anywhere save inside of Subaru. After all, it was a memory that was related to Remington. At the height of the commotion surrounding the Uruguram demon beasts, Subaru had used Ram as a decoy to stop Ram's rampage. When all trace of Rem vanished from the world, established facts connected to her were sloppily rearranged to maintain consistency. Barusu? A world where Rem did not exist was slowly settling into place. By all rights, there was probably no way to stop such a thing. But it was possible the existence of Subaru Natsuki might keep it at bay, perhaps by driving in some nails fastening Rem's existence to the world. Ram, I have to talk to you about something important. To you, it's probably the most important thing in the world. Beyond Master Roswell, I do not believe any such thing exists. Nah, there is something, that's what we're gonna talk about. Subaru was embarrassed that he'd chickened out and avoided this conversation for so long, considering how important it was. There was still a fair bit of time until they reached the mansion. There were countless things that he had to ponder. Even so, he could at least take the time to. There was a girl named Remington. And so he spoke to build a place for that girl in her beloved older sister's heart. His second return to Roswell Manor went off without a hitch. That said, the awful experience I had took place inside the mansion. Scratching his cheek, Subaru murmured to himself as he dismounted Patlash before the gate. His other objective, reporting to the residents of Earlham Village, had been taken care of beforehand. He'd told them that their families remaining in the sanctuary would soon be released, and their reunion would occur within a few short days. They had been delighted at the news, but Subaru felt guilty for using it as the justification for his return. Still, this was to make sure everyone made it through the coming danger safe and sound, or at least that was what Subaru told himself. You seem stricken by pangs of guilt, almost like a proper adult. Take care to remember that feeling in the future. Future, huh? You're thinking about Frederica just as much as I am. I'm not speaking of today's future, but far beyond that. Considering Lady Amelia's royal selection, the opportunities for Barusu to engage in wicked deeds shall only increase, though I am probably wasting my time bothering with you. Subaru couldn't even muster a groan of complaint at her harsh appraisal. Ram dismounted the land dragon like he had. Gazing at the mansion from beside Subaru, she appeared calm and ready. Her face didn't reveal a trace of the gloom and frailty Subaru harbored. He was genuinely envious about that. Well, excuse me for being unable to leave that boorish lower-middle-class mindset behind. You have served but a few months, Barusu. Ram has served 10 years. Our degree of loyalty and length of service differ. It is impertinent for you to think you can stand upon the same stage. More importantly, have you managed to harden your resolve? I'll turn that question right back at you. Ram, putting their differing mindsets on the back burner, asked him whether he was ready for something far more immediate. Subaru closed one eye. With their destination, Roswell Manor, right before their eyes, Subaru couldn't exactly back off. Compared to the previous loop, he'd arrived back 2 entire days early, but please don't let anything have happened yet. Put bluntly, his latest return to the mansion was more or less the fastest option possible, given the current point of return by death. The only way to get back any faster would have been to drop everything and run back the moment he got out of the tomb. Subaru wondered if Patlash would even cooperate if he had tried that. Unfortunately, that course of action was not something that Amelia, Roswell, or the others involved would have understood. Of course, if it meant he'd make it back in time to do something, Subaru would have charged forward regardless, but as Subaru sank into thought, a hand moved to his right arm as if by nature, touching the white handkerchief wrapped around its wrist. This charm symbolized a prayer for his safe journey, and the promise Subaru had made with Petra that he would come back safe. Even if Frederica is an enemy, whether she intended to start something right away matters a lot. The fact that she showed her face at the village yesterday doesn't eliminate the possibility she did something right after we left, but, Barusu, attack or run away? It's a hard choice to make, huh? This time, Ram's here, but if it comes down to a fight, it'll be a drop in the bucket. When we're up against Elsa, running for the hills is way smarter. The problem with that is Biko still holed up here, Barusu. What? Can't you tell I'm desperately trying to put my thoughts in order right now? If I don't work things out well enough, we'll seriously pay for it later. Could you put up with me talking to myself for a lit? If you are going to do that, I think you should do it inside of the mansion, right? Subaru, turning when Ram tugged at his sleeve, pleaded with her about the importance of his fevered mumbling. But then a cute, amused giggle brushed against his eardrums, making Subaru look toward the gate in surprise. When he did so, he saw a maid standing on the other side of the gate with a demure smile on her face. She had reddish-brown hair accented by a big ribbon on her head. Her adorable smiling face convinced Subaru that an angel had appeared. He was taken aback when he finally laid eyes on the girl. Petra, is that you? Welcome back, Master Subaru. You are back far sooner than expected, no? Why yeah, I'm back. I'm happy to see you. In front of the surprised Subaru, the girl, Petra, elegantly grasped the hem of her skirt and politely bowed. After staring intently at her, confirming that she was safe and sound, Subaru let out a deep sigh. Subaru's strange demeanor made Petra cock her head to the side, completely mystified. Then, she let out a little as she nervously turned her back to Subaru, carefully arranging her clothing and hair. Then, saying to herself okay, she turned back around and smiled adorably once more. Is there something wrong, Master Subaru? Geez. You are so damn cute. Petra's unbearably charming behavior drove Subaru to impulsively embrace her and stroke her head. The complex, unreservedly adoring motions of his hand made Petra's eyes go wide as she raised a bewildered cry. What are you? Subaru, this is embarrassing. Gah, you really have no regard for people's feelings. You really don't, damn it all. Subaru? The girl's cheeks reddened as the brows on her blushing face furrowed with a questioning look. Still buried in Subaru's chest, Petra examined him with worried eyes as she asked in a low voice, "Does it hurt somewhere?" The worried girl's fingertips brushed Subaru's trembling cheek. "Nah," he replied, gently taking into his hand the slender fingers touching him as he shook his head. Breathing deep through his nose, he stopped for a moment. Then, he slowly met the girl's gaze as he answered fully. I'm just relieved from the bottom of my heart. Hi Petra, I'm home. To put it bluntly, I am not thrilled with this situation. That's the second time I've heard that today. I suppose it is. It's sarcasm after all, adorable sarcasm from dear Ram, who's at a loss from being thoroughly forgotten. Ever since Subaru's reunion with Petra, Ram kept shooting off sarcastic remarks. Moved by the mere sight of the girl being safe and sound, Subaru had unwittingly gotten quite emotional, but Ram's silent anger at having been ignored in the meantime ran deep. Subaru was on his knees as he apologized. I'm sure you already understand, but I was worried about her. I'm just relieved that she's all right. How indecent. You're way more indecent for saying that about a tiny girl like this. Subaru deflated as Ram folded her arms and snorted with a ha. But as she watched the exchange between the pair, Petra gingerly walked closer to Ram. The big ribbon on her head swayed. With a fair bit of tension on her face, she asked "You're Miss Ram, right? This is the first time we have properly spoken, so..." "I am Petra, new servant here at the master's mansion." "I am pleased to meet you." "My, you aren't calling me Ramchi today?" Raising an eyebrow, Ram teased the girl about the nickname that had spread among the children of the village some 2 months prior. Her reply brought a blush to Petra's face. "Be back then she panicked in her embarrassment. "I was still just a child. But please watch me. I will be different from now on. Unlike Barusu, you are quite discerning. Very well, you pass." "Hey, who do you think you are?" Incidentally, Barusu fails. As he is, I cannot allow him stay at the mansion. Then what was the point of me coming back? Naturally, seeing Subaru and Ram mess with each other like they always did helped relieve the tension from Petra's face. Seeing this effect on her made Subaru think that Ram's way of being considerate was as hard to understand as ever. He never raised it though because he soon focused on the mansion and changed the topic. So Petra, has anything changed while I've been gone?" That's what I wanted to ask you. Why have only Subaru and Miss Ram come back? What about Lady Amelia and the noisy guy? Amelia-tan is in the middle of an important job." "Otto. What is Otto doing, anyway?" "I do not know, nor am I interested in knowing." Ram's dismissiveness aside, even Subaru wasn't aware what Otto was up to from day to day. Within the sanctuary, he had been approaching people as a traveling merchant who'd simply accompanied the other evacuated villagers. Other than that, there wasn't any particular job Otto had been entrusted with, but I expect he can help ease Amelia-tan's heart for a short while, though I doubt that'll work for long. "I suppose not. His face betrays a lack of endurance, so he'll likely break down in no time. It's not like I left him behind to be a punching bag, you know?" In the first place, Amelia wasn't the kind of person who could cheer up by directing her resentments at others. If things stayed reasonably simple, consoling her when she was crestfallen was a simple matter as well. Subaru's and Ram's replies made Petra go accepting them for the time being. Accordingly, questioning rights shifted back to Subaru, whereupon he repeated his earlier question. "All right, rematch time. Has anything changed during the time you've been holding the fort? Especially with Frederica, Miss Frederica?" "She's very gentle, and she's so thoughtful about teaching me things. Besides that, nothing's really happened, except maybe, once in a while, she looks outside with a worried look." "Outside? Sheesh. She's worried about you and Lady Amelia. At least figure out that much." Subaru deflated when he was scolded for being a blockhead. What he gleaned from his current conversation with Petra was that she and Frederica got along curiously well, and Frederica had not engaged in any obviously suspicious behavior. Also, since he failed to properly appreciate the feelings of others, he was in danger of Petra hating him. If anything, it's that last bit that's the most serious problem. If I don't quietly patch things up, I'll be in a real bind. Setting Barusu's nonsense aside, Petra, where is Frederica right now? Miss Frederica went into the forest to check on all the barriers. She said that until all the villagers are back, it's her job to make sure the barriers are properly woven. It should still be a little while before she's back." "I see. I wonder if that is for better or ill. Barusu, what will you do?" Ram posed that question to Subaru, secure in the knowledge that Frederica was absent. Reading between the lines, Ram was posing a choice. Withdraw? Advance? At the very least, if they evacuated Petra to Erlam village at the current juncture, she wouldn't become involved even if Frederica did resort to drastic measures. However, I want to check on something else. Let's head to where Rem is. Remington. The circumstantial evidence seemed to point to Frederica harboring an intent to betray them, but it wouldn't be possible to discern her true intent until they exchanged words. Subaru held high hopes for that talk, and in turn, made a choice to take things in a favorable direction for Ram. On the way back, he'd told Ram about the existence of Rem as well as their relationship, as time permitted. He couldn't possibly speak about her as thoroughly as he would have liked. At the very least, He had managed to explain that they were sisters and what circumstances had caused her to forget the person who was her other half. She would reunite with the sister she had been forced to forget. Understandably, even Ram could not fully maintain her composure, her cheeks were stiff, and her pink eyes were filled with worry. Subaru peered at her from the side. "What? I thought you looked tense." "I am not tense nah, you're definitely tense. I figured you would be, and I'd rather you be." This wasn't anything like an emotional reunion between sisters who had been living far apart. Ram would not awaken from her sleep, and to Ram, the reunion was one that genuinely didn't bring back any memories. Even so, Subaru, as the one person left who knew them both, had a single wish. If nothing else, when they reunited, he wanted Ram to feel a pang in her heart, however tiny it might be. "Petra." "Yeah, yes. Ram is in the same room as before." When Subaru called out to her, the quick-witted Petra said, "This way," and began guiding them. Following her petite back, Subaru and Ram both stepped into Roswell Manor for the first time in several days. Their destination was the bedroom devoted to Ram on the second floor of the eastern wing. They proceeded through the mansion interior, meticulously maintained by Frederica and Petra's work. After a short while, the three arrived at their destination. "I'll go back to cleaning the west wing some more. Please call me if anything comes up." Not wanting to be insensitive in any way, Petra courteously bowed and excused herself. Subaru watched the newly minted maid depart, shrugging his shoulders at Ram, who was staring at the door. "A very well-mannered child. She is a suitable candidate for serving Master Roswell. I agree that she's no mere village girl." "So you're mentally prepared?" "I am, always. Unlike you, Barusu." When Ram replied with a demure look, Subaru forced himself to smile as he slowly put his hand on the doorknob. He hesitated only for a single moment. The door creaked slightly as it opened up. And inside the room, there was a blue-haired girl, quietly sleeping atop a well-kept bed. She looked just like he last remembered her. It was as if the room had been frozen in time. The slight rise and fall of her chest and her faint breathing were the only outward signs that she remained alive, meager proof that they were. "Remington." Subaru said her name. Anyone could tell there was a great deal infused within that single, brief murmur. It held an unceasing torrent of emotion, one that was directed toward only a single person in the entire world. He had steeled his heart, determined never to waver, no matter what struggles he might have to face. But her sleeping face easily shattered that resolve and determination. "So you were safe and sound." He hesitated to say safe and sound, given her condition as a helpless sleeping beauty. Even so, Subaru's heart did find some measure of peace from seeing with his own eyes that she was the same as how he left her when he had departed. He felt like someone had told him, there's no such thing as something that you can never make right. He also felt like someone had told him, don't give up on making this right. His emotions were too intense for true relief, but they also weren't enough for him to come to a final resolution. Completely unrelated to what was rumbling in Subaru's chest, Ram was completely at a loss for words as she stared at Rem, asleep in bed. She unconsciously took half a step forward. Subaru couldn't see her face, but Barusu. "What is it? Could you leave us alone for a little while?" "Sure." It was neither an order nor a demand from Ram. It was a simple request. With no reason to go against it, her request made Subaru draw in his chin. After brushing the hair out of Rem's sleeping face a tiny bit, he quietly left the room, leaving the sisters by themselves. He proceeded to look back, leaning against the door as he sighed deeply. He'd confirmed that Rem and Petra were safe. Only for the moment. For the moment. In the worst case, he would find himself in checkmate, unable to arrive in time to make everything right no matter how quickly he left the sanctuary. He still had to find out what cards his opponent was bringing to the table, and which hand she would play. To discover that, he had to master Subaru. What a surprise. "I did not expect you to return so soon. I don't see much surprise on your face, though. Please do not speak about my face. I am quite self-conscious about it." The jesting tone Subaru heard made the corners of his lips twist as he tried to smile. Though his expression couldn't be considered friendly by any means, the only other person present decided to interpret it that way as she glanced at the door behind Subaru. You paid Rem a visit? Yeah. It's only been 2 days, but each one felt like 10 lifetimes. Right now, the sisters are meeting. Sisters, I see. That girl's existence is very complicated for Ram, isn't it? The woman's eyes looked quite concerned for the girl past the door. Her seemingly genuine distress made Subaru feel uneasy at the increasing discrepancy with the conclusion he had drawn from circumstantial evidence. The fact that she hadn't instantly launched an attack, let alone taken Rem and Petra hostage, and was even freely engaging in a friendly chat, was wholly inconsistent with Subaru's assumptions. It is best to leave them by themselves for a while longer. Let me pour tea for you in the reception room, Master Subaru. We can speak at greater length there. I guess that's fine. Going ahead without Ram isn't the wisest thing I've ever done, but he'd brought Ram along in case of emergency, yet he was about to go alone to a place where such an emergency might very well arise. It seemed suicidal, but Subaru dismissed that for 2 reasons. There probably wouldn't be an emergency, and he didn't want to be the idiot who intruded on someone's special moment. Don't betray my expectations, okay? I'm trusting you, Frederica. Then I shall strive to do my very best to live up to them. I have taken to heart that this is a maid's duty. With that reply, the woman, Frederica, hid her sharp fangs behind her hand as she smiled softly towards Subaru. The fact that Lady Amelia is not with you must mean affairs in the sanctuary are not yet settled, I take it? After relocating from Rem's bedroom, the pair sat down on sofas in the reception room. Spread out between them was a table and cups of freshly poured black tea. Having finished setting the table, Frederica made the first comment. Subaru confirmed her inference with a yeah, nodding as he gazed at the steam wafting up into the air. I'm grateful for you coming out and saying that you understand what's going on, especially after I had to talk with a guy who apparently knows everything but won't be straight with you about any of it. When you say that, Master Subaru, I believe we have the same person in mind. I'm sure you're also thinking of a certain, hardcore eccentric who won't let his makeup slip even when he's badly hurt. Subaru's sarcastic reply brought an oh my out of Frederica as she met his words with amusement. After that exchange of minor jabs, Subaru leaned forward quite a bit as he got directly to the point. When we were setting off for the sanctuary, you deliberately withheld a fair bit of information, but that was the vow at work, right? And that's still in effect even now? Frederica had told Subaru and Amelia about the sanctuary, but she had hidden a number of facts from them, saying I cannot speak of it. Frederica had strenuously insisted that this vow of hers was the reason why. When Subaru questioned whether that yoke was still on her neck, Frederica shook her head side to side. Unfortunately, I cannot respond as you wish me to. The vow is still in effect. In the first place, unlike a pact or a covenant, a vow has no compulsory power by itself. This is simply what my heart has settled upon. If there's no compulsion, then can't you bend it just a little? Even if it's against your beliefs, you understand the situation we're in here, right? 10 years, 7 months, 13 days. As Subaru pleaded his case, Frederica suddenly rattled off those words. The span of time didn't mean anything to Subaru. While he was thoroughly perplexed by this tidbit of information, Frederica gently brought her cup of black tea to her lips and explained. That is how long it's been since I left the sanctuary and began serving Master Roswell. That is also when the vow went into effect. Master Subaru, are you asking me to throw all that time aside? Ram was just talking to me about time, actually. Scratching his head over the quiet statement, Subaru took a single, deep breath before pressing on. If it's necessary, then yeah, throwing it aside is exactly what I want you to do. I'd like to respect the time and emotion that went into keeping your vow. But if it's in the way of something truly important, I think it's something that should be broken and tossed. You say that rather lightly. I'm not saying that you should be super excited to break your vow and throw it away. But if you're up for doing that, Subaru made a paper-ripping gesture, which made Frederica's jade-colored eyes tense up. With neither side willing to concede any ground, this was nothing but crashing their opinions against one another. No one would call this a negotiation. Subaru knew nothing good could come from continuing this. Accordingly, he came at her from a different direction. I get that you're dead set against the idea. Let's try talking about something else, then. Frederica, please look at this. What is it, Master Subaru? Putting a hand into his pocket, Subaru presented Frederica what he had been given, the blue, glimmering crystal. Her first glimpse of it only made Frederica put on a questioning face, but soon enough, she realized its identity. That is, the crystal I handed to. No, it's not? That necklace. Ah. It looks just like that one, but it's different. Take it and see for yourself, please? Frederica blinked, her hand trembling as she accepted the necklace. She stared at the crystal resting in her palm, feeling it in with her hand over and over, after which. This is Garf's stone, isn't it? Yeah, that's right. When I was heading out, well, technically, he handed it to Ram, but Garfield no doubt had never intended for Subaru rather than Ram to hand it to Frederica. No way am I telling him about this, Subaru firmly decided in his heart. Either way, the only people who call him Garf are people close to him. That's true whether it's Ram, Ryuzu, or you, Frederica. Though I kinda figured you two were related, even without that revelation. Then it isn't as if you heard about it from Garf. I can tell from your faces that you're related by blood. Besides, you give me the impression of an older sister. In the end, it was just my intuition based on your attributes. I am uncertain what attributes you might be talking about, but you are correct. There's no mistake, for I am Garfield's older sister by blood. With a wry, pleasant smile, Frederica lightly touched the corner of her eye with a fingertip. Subaru averted his eyes because the gesture seemed like she was wiping away a tear, which made him feel like he was watching something he ought not to. My, Master Subaru, you are unexpectedly timid. Sheesh, any man has it tough when he makes a girl cry. Here's a handkerchief to wipe that off. A different handkerchief than the one Petra gave you. How surprisingly gentlemanlike. Walking around with a handkerchief was a habit he'd learned from when he lived back with his own family. Thanking his mother for having instilled the practice in him, Subaru blushed when Frederica teased him about it as she accepted the handkerchief. She was dragging the conversation in an odd direction, but the last thing he wanted to do was simply go along with it. Anyway, I didn't expect the necklace to change anything. In the end, I only wanted it to trigger a different conversation. I'll get to the crucial point. A crucial point, you say? Yeah, the main thing I wanted to discuss. What did you set up a teleport trap in the sanctuary for? Plunging straight into that topic was a large gamble on Subaru's part. The crystal Frederica had handed them had triggered the teleportation upon Amelia's and his arrival in the sanctuary. In other words, it was proof that Frederica had intentions of some kind regarding Amelia. Frederica was familiar with the sanctuary, so she surely knew that Amelia would lose consciousness once she came in contact with the barrier. What was she scheming, teleporting Amelia when she was unconscious? Subaru cut straight to the meat of his interrogation. Answer me, Frederica. Or is it that you can't talk about this either cause of the vow? Even if that's the case, I can't let you be quiet about this. I'll make you talk, no matter what. The moment he said that, he felt the interior of his mouth instantly run dry. The tension in the air sped up his heart rate. With his gaze, he pinned Frederica where she sat, assessing her every move and gesture. He knew it was a risk to approach the crux of the matter without Ram present, but Subaru was seen as weak and underestimated by many. At the very least, if he could wring out a little information so he could piece everything together, Master Subaru. While Subaru studied her, stiff all over because of his enormous gamble, Frederica curtly called out his name. Subaru's only response was to watch her even more intently. His black eyes met her jade eyes head-on. What do you mean by teleport? The sincerity of Frederica's question made it seem like a question mark floated above her head. Her reaction left Subaru flabbergasted. Even if you look at me like that, I honestly cannot tell you something I do not know. Wait, you can't fool me. If you don't know anything, then my whole premise goes out the window. Dunno if I should call them the conservative faction or the stay-at-home faction, but you're cooperating with people from the sanctuary, right? Conservative? Stay at home? What are you talking about? Could you please explain from the beginning? Me, explain to you what's happening with the sanctuary? For Subaru, seeing Frederica not understanding a single thing he had mentioned so far was truly a thunderbolt from a clear blue sky. To begin with, the whole point of this conversation had been to question Frederica about various things in the sanctuary that she had to have known. And yet, Subaru realized their positions were reversed. This isn't an act, right? Seemingly clinging to hope, Subaru stared at Frederica, but she shook her head with a look of pity. Her gesture destroyed the last foothold Subaru had remaining. Of course, he couldn't take everything Frederica said at face value. But even with that in mind, it really didn't seem like she was lying at all. Barusu, meeting Frederica one-on-one without Ram suggests you truly have no need for your life. The door to the reception room opened in grand fashion at the same time they heard that remark. Crossing the threshold was Ram, haughtily folding her arms. After sighing slightly, she addressed an astonished Subaru. In the end, your speculation was wildly off the mark. You are so pathetic, I can barely stand to look at you. Yeah, sorry about. Hey, wait. Didn't that wild speculation about Frederica maybe cooperating with the stay-at-home faction in the sanctuary come from you to begin with? I said it was a possibility, nothing more. You really should find more constructive things to do than fixate on finding fault in others. It just ain't fair. Subaru clutched at his head, forcibly trying to sweep away his embarrassment, but Ram paid no heed whatsoever. She boldly sat at Subaru's side, bringing his untouched black tea to her lips. It would seem that your skill at making tea has not improved in my absence. Even though pouring tea is my specialty. What an uncharming girl you are. I do not need to be charming. Ram is plenty cute enough. Any more so and the world would be imperiled. Truly, your tongue is as sharp as ever. Goodness, how very like you. Though she showed her fangs as she shouted angrily, Frederica's final words oozed with softness. And while Ram's face was unchanged from always, it was instilled with just a faint whiff of affection. This conveyed to Subaru how they had been colleagues for a long time, or perhaps it reminded him more of people who had been friends from a rather young age. Though you may not have been away for very long, you are still in good health? Yes, Ram as always. I suppose I cannot lightly say that this day. Did you spend enough time with Rem? Frederica lowered her voice to a whisper and posed a question that was no doubt difficult to ask. Subaru wanted to know the answer, too. To these paired gazes, Ram slightly lowered her head as she said, "It's mysterious." Just as I heard from Barusu, that girl is the spitting image of Ram. When I touch her forehead, I know that blood of the same tribe flows through her, and yet, inside of Ram, that girl's existence is still nothing but a blank. Suppressing her emotions, she strove to speak in a normal tone of voice to maintain her normal, steady self. The loneliness and desolation Ram carried, the sadness that made her voice tremble, her attempts to hold them in check made their effects on her stand out all the more. It was not Ram's fault. Of course, it wasn't Rem's either. Fault lay with the sinner that had consumed Rem's very being, tearing her away from the world. If, beyond that blasphemer, there was anyone else to blame, sorry. Barusu, why are you apologizing? I didn't want to make you meet Rem like this. But Subaru was insufficient. He was fatally, idiotically insufficient. That was why he was helpless to help the sisters meet except this way. If Ram was hurt as a result, it was none other than Subaru who ought to bear that blame, so I'm sorry. It's not something that you'll forgive even if I apologize. Stop making such a suspicious face. It degrades an already almost worthless man, though I suppose I am too late to do anything about that. Mid-apology, Ram's hand stretched forth and mercilessly pinched Subaru's cheek. When Subaru let out a lament at the amazing pain, Ram snorted ha, and let a laugh slip out. Do not go making that face. It is as if you decided you were something important to Ram and Rem, lowly Barusu. Why, you said it yourself. I really am a lowly. Ram has no interest in Barusu's feelings of guilt. At the very least, she doesn't blame Barusu in the slightest. Do not insult Ram and her little sister by wallowing in tragedy all by your lonesome. Thrusting a finger at his forehead, Ram made a truly Ram-like statement as Subaru's mouth flapped open and closed. Why, you don't even remember her, but you act like Ram's older sister all of a sudden? It is quite mysterious. Though I have no memory of her, I am very firm about holding such a position. It would seem Ram is an elder sister much respected and loved by her younger sister. This is natural, of course. That way of thinking is seriously big sis of you. Even though Rem's existence had fallen away, Ram's authority remained undaunted. Subaru, conflicted as he was about whether this was a happy or a desolate thing, admired Ram's nobility of spirit regardless. Yes. It is quite clear, even to me, that you two get along very well. Frederica, intervening in the pair's exchange, offered Ram fresh tea as she said, I, too, think an unchanged Ram is a happy thing. But the main issue at hand was something else, yes? I suppose so. Let us return to the conversation that strayed due to Barusu, the issue of the teleport. The one Master Subaru was speaking about just earlier, I take it? The atmosphere had been relaxed, but with one word out of Ram's mouth, it tightened anew. Seeing the grave look on Frederica's face, Subaru pointed to the blue crystal she was holding. Let me get to details, then. The crystal you gave to Amelia reacted to the barrier, triggering a magic teleport in the dragon carriage, one that rather conveniently launched its victim directly to the tomb. Teleport to the tomb. Was Lady Amelia all right? Fortunately, she was, thanks to Subaru's sacrifice. A noble deed by his standards. In other words, I was teleported in Amelia's place. I'm all right, though. Ram accepted more tea as Subaru did a little dance on the spot, demonstrating that he was in good health. The sight made Frederica forget to cover her mouth with her hand, openly displaying the shock on her face. With this, it was finally established that Frederica really hadn't been involved with the crystal causing the teleport. But if that's so, what did you give her the crystal for? According to Roswell, what you need to get into the sanctuary is the correct path. Having an object doesn't make you qualified. You can't speak because of the vow, I figure? If so, that is a poor excuse, Frederica. Anticipating Frederica's hesitation, Ram unleashed words so cold, they made Frederica bristle. But she immediately nodded. It is true, as you say. That is not a topic of conversation that may pass from my lips. So you chose to rely on that poor excuse anyway, still that cannot be the end of the matter. Hey. Ram, wait. Frederica stubbornly refused to relent. Seeing Ram's reaction to this made Subaru nervous. After all, Ram had stood up, her hand gripping her cane. It was short and slender, apparently made of wood. The cane was her weapon, which she lovingly employed when she was casting magic. Don't get ahead of yourself. We were just talking peacefully. What gives, all of a sudden? You are too lenient, Barusu. Frederica will not respond to the question. Her rebellious intent is clear. Frederica wouldn't do something that stupid. And you're the one who said that. Her conclusion was too hasty to be called decisive. In fact, it was Ram herself who had most trusted and defended Frederica's nature as a person. Then why are you? We shall restrain Frederica and bring her with us to the sanctuary. By doing this, we shall flush out the one giving Frederica instructions. Actions are more certain than words, and produce faster results, too. Well, you've got a point, but you can't think it'd go that smoothly. With an unyielding posture, Ram was essentially saying, we'll tie her up if that's what we have to do to find answers. But if Ram resorted to such measures, Frederica would surely resist. If it came to that, it might not be the way he'd imagined it, but they would indeed be unable to avoid an undesirable battle nonetheless. Faced with Frederica's silent posture, a part of Subaru wanted to do just that, but even so, I don't want any bloodshed. Frederica! Your being quiet is part of the P. If you wish to take me with you to the sanctuary, I shall not resist. You see. Even Frederica's saying stuff like, what? Subaru, his face pale from the explosive situation, was flabbergasted at what had just entered his ears. However, to an astounded Subaru, Frederica calmly kept her posture straight, as she explained further. I am saying, I shall yield to Ram's judgment. If you wish to take me to the sanctuary, that is fine. Though I do not understand how this would accomplish your objectives. Why you won't resist? Why? What's the meaning of? Quite a slow learner you are. Standing beside Subaru and bewildered to a comical extent, Ram sighed, pointing her rod at Frederica before continuing. Frederica cannot break her vow of her own will. Therefore, if Barusa drags her off by force, it cannot be helped. Such an excuse is required. The part about me dragging her off by force sounds unlikely, but you're fine with this? The suddenly cooperative attitude that had sprung up between Ram and Frederica had thrown Subaru for a loop. After all, until just moments before, Frederica had done a fine job of setting her heart on that vow, speaking as if leaving it unbroken was a question of her beliefs. And yet, with the excuse that she was forced, she's not going against it. Is that it? To be honest, there's an opposition party inside me complaining that's too arbitrary of a plan to resolve things, but then simply silence that voice. This is the best of all possible plans to put this matter in order. It didn't sit well with him. But it would be meaningless for Subaru to whine and groan about it. Just as Ram had said, this was a three-person consensus. He need only shut his ears to the moderately discordant sounds in the background. But he did want to say just one thing about it. Even though you didn't arrange it in advance, you two sure were on the same page, but of course. We have known each other for nearly a decade. Hearing those perfectly matching replies, Subaru completely took his hat off to them. And with that, the situation had well and truly been sorted out. First, barring the possibility of her being an actress of exceptional skill, it seemed that Frederica had absolutely no involvement with the teleportation incident. Her circumstances for remaining silent because of the vow would surely become clear if she went to the sanctuary. In so doing, they would also be able to expose the mastermind trying to infiltrate through cracks in the camp's framework. Hiding the teleportation and then instructing you to keep it secret. When I put it like that, the guy you made a promise to has the worst personality ever. I suppose so. Even I cannot willingly obey instructions that make a fool out of me to this extent. It is said, the empire makes you carry lead as heavy as your deceits. What did you say? It is a Valachian empire saying. It expresses the nation's cold view toward Decep. What is it? Nah, it's nothing. Just thought that blood will tell, huh? Frederica seemed proud of her knowledge, but Subaru's reply was only accompanied by a lukewarm expression. He felt like he'd gotten the answer he wanted, if not quite in the way he had intended. Either way, getting Frederica's cooperation, even if in a roundabout way, is a big win for us. Thanks to that, I think I can toss away the extra misgivings I had inside of me. Extra misgivings? Basically, I thought that if Frederica did turn out to be hostile and the mansion was under attack, that'd be a huge disaster. Frederica inclined her head, looking like she had not the faintest idea pertaining to this disaster he spoke of. That state held, with nothing of the disaster, not even E4 Elsa, escaping her lips. Based on the reaction of the Frederica before his eyes, it seemed safe to assume there were no ties between her and that butcher. If that was so, they had to get away from the mansion with all haste and draw up a plan to deal with that black-robed butcher. Subaru knew her attack was coming. That would let him seize the initiative, giving them time to concentrate their forces, encircle her, and take her down. That's another reason I want to pull out of the mansion. There's no time to lose. We march Frederica along, grab Petra, and go. And if we pick up Rem and one Biko whose current location is unknown, then, at least for the moment, they could escape the peril that was about to befall the mansion. Seeing that beacon of light, Subaru felt like he'd found a compass pointing a way out of the dark. Oh my, I would prefer if you weren't so cold. Right as Subaru was counting on his fingers the various things he ought to do, a glossy voice violently brushed against his eardrums. Instantly, Subaru's heart beat louder, accompanied by pain that made it feel like his heart was being rent asunder. Looking like he'd been slapped, he turned toward the reception door entrance, and there stood a figure he knew well. She had black hair in a triple braid, lavish black clothes that exposed a scandalous degree of skin, and deep, captivating jet black eyes that seemed to pull you in. Black, black, she was the very epitome of pitch-black bloodlust. Her familiar beauty, and a devilish face he'd never wanted to see again, suddenly blotted out the light of day with her dark presence. Now, let us fulfill our promise, shall we? These words spoken, the bowel hunter charmingly licked her red lips, a prelude to the slaughter to come.